When a monarch takes her final breath, the world expects silence, ritual, mourning, ceremony. But what if that last breath carried more than farewell? What if it sealed away secrets that could shake the very foundation of history? We know Queen Elizabeth II as the longest reigning monarch in British history, an emblem of stability and a symbol of resilience through war, upheaval, and change. But rarely do we ask what did she know that we did not. There are stories from us whispered in guarded corridors that suggest her final years were shaped not only by matters of state, but by a fascination with the unknown skies above us. And tonight, we unravel one of the strangest myths ever tied to the crown, the idea that the Queen herself carried to her grave secrets about aliens, hidden pacts, and buried truths. Subscribe to Tales Mythology and hit the bell so you never miss another story of ancient mysteries, forgotten legends, and the secrets they never wanted you to hear. If you enjoy this video, please like and share. It helps us bring more hidden tales to light. Curiosity in the palace. She was, as history books remind us, a monarch of duty. Yet behind closed doors, those who watched her closely spoke of a subtle change. The woman who once dedicated nights to documents of Parliament began lingering over far different volumes, UFO reports, crop circle diagrams, and journals filled with sightings that defied logic. Imagine Windsor Castle's dimly lit corridors in the small hours of the night. A queen pacing restlessly, servants silenced by her gestures, guards instructed not to follow. What was she searching for? Curiosity is often a seed planted by small events. Throughout history, world leaders from Winston Churchill to US President have reportedly been briefed on UFO incidents. Did the Queen, who saw the world's deepest crises unfold, stumble onto whispers too heavy to ignore? The secret journeys. Eyewitness accounts fictionalizing this tale describe her traveling discreetly to Orford Ness, an abandoned military site off England's coast. To the public, it was nothing but Cold War concrete crumbling into the sea. But to her, it became an altar of the unknown. Inside derelict bunkers, strange meetings took place, men in plain suits, scientists scribbling symbols foreign to earthly alphabets, officers recounting encounters they could not explain. It is said that on one such night, a triangular craft appeared above the horizon, silent, deliberate, shimmering with an otherworldly hum, and for the first time, even her serene composure cracked. The cracks of fear, the image of a monarch staring out into the night sky, not in ceremony, but in fear and awe, is chilling. She leaned toward the window, not away. This wasn't curiosity, it was something deeper. Throughout folklore and history, leaders are often drawn into mysteries they cannot resolve. Think of pharaohs consulting the stars, or emperors seeking omens in comets. Elizabeth's fascination, if real, fits into this archetype: sovereign seeking signs beyond mortal grasp. The files that shouldn't exist. After her death, the story deepens. A sealed envelope, marked with the crest of the Ministry of Defense, allegedly found in her private study. Inside, documents stamped eyes only, referring to something called Project Albian. Reports of contact, exchanges shrouded in ambiguity, notes written in her own hand, with one phrase underlined again and again: prepare for their return. Imagine finding that, knowing it was not written for the world, but for herself. A private warning, a queen's last attempt to process the unprocessable. The weight of silence. Those who uncovered these hints again, in the mythic narrative, paid a price. Surveillance, intimidation, attempts to erase them from the margins of history. Phones crackling with static, strangers watching from darkened cars, sudden accidents with no witnesses. These are the tools of silence, used not only in spy thrillers, but in real life. Consider the case of Dr. John Mack, Harvard psychiatrist, who studied alleged alien abduction experiences in the 1990s. His work drew immense controversy, and though not silenced violently, he faced professional exile. When people speak of the unspeakable, society, a powerful institution, often seeks to shut them down. Voices from the shadows. Enter Richard, an ex-officer, who confides that Project Albian wasn't just research, it was a pact, A deal made in secrecy, technology in exchange for something unspoken. At first, advancements flowed, whispers of cures, energies, propulsion that bent physics. But promises soured. Humanity demanded power. The visitors demanded understanding of us. What began as cooperation ended in betrayal. And the Queen, she was not a passive observer. She tried to mediate, to reason, but in knowing too much, she became untouchable in life, yet vulnerable in death. The scientist's confession. At the heart of the myth lies a figure known as Dr. Avery, a scientist erased from public record. In the ruins of Orford Ness, he tells a trembling truth. Humanity accepted alien gifts without grasping the cost. Energies twisted into weapons. Disaster earthquakes, tsunamis, nuclear meltdowns were not purely natural, but side effects of tampering with forces beyond comprehension. Here's where myth brushes against real tragedy. History is full of technologies turned dangerous. Nuclear fission promised limitless energy, but also birthed Hiroshima. Artificial intelligence today promises breakthroughs, yet carries risks of misuse. Avery's words mirror a timeless truth. Power without wisdom is peril. The burden of knowing. Knowledge is never neutral. It weighs, it lingers, and the deeper I carried her secrets, the heavier they pressed against me. The narrow torrents are guard. Now a witness begins to feel the walls closing in. It starts subtly. A static hiss on every phone call. Cars idling too long outside the flat, shadows that vanish the moment he turns. At first, he wonders if this is paranoia. But history tells us, paranoia often has roots in reality. Consider the Cold War era, when whistleblowers like Edward Snowden much later in time described a life consumed by surveillance. Every shadow feels like proof, every silence, a threat. The narrator realizes he has crossed an invisible line. From loyal servant to liability. The manufactured accident. Driving home one rainy night, he notices headlights trailing too closely. The rhythm is unnatural, every turn mirrored, every stop prolonged. Then, the jolt. Metal collides, tires scream, and his car spins into a ditch. When he staggers out, blood streaking his face, the other vehicle has vanished. No witnesses, no explanation, only silence. A note soon arrives beneath his door. You're in over your head. Leave it alone. Silencing through intimidation is not fiction. Journalists investigating corruption, from Russia to Mexico, often report shadowing, threats, or accidents. The tools are universal. This story mirrors those same tactics of suppression. The cafe encounter Richard. Then comes Richard, his eyes restless, yet knowing. He doesn't ask what the narrator has seen, knows. You're not chasing shadows, Richard whispers. You're chasing something they've been protecting for decades. He speaks of Project Albian not as a research effort, but as a pact. A deal struck in silence. Human leaders trading compliance for technology. In the beginning, there were gifts, advances in medicine, whispers of energy beyond fossil fuels. But promises turned to threats. Richard says, referring to the Queen, believed she could mediate. She believed diplomacy extended beyond Earth. But she knew too much. The trope of bargaining with the unknown runs deep in mythology. In Norse legends, kings bartered with gods. In medieval lore, rulers struck pacts with devils. Richard's words echo that timeless fear. What happens when humanity overpromises to forces beyond comprehension? The ruins of Orford Ness. Compelled by Richard's words, the narrator returns to Orford Ness. The ruins feel alive, as though the land itself rejects him. Inside, he finds Dr. Avery, scientist erased from history. Gaunt, trembling, his voice cracks with the weight of what he knows. We were children playing with fire, Avery admits. We accepted their gifts without grasping the cost. He speaks of misuse, how healing technologies were twisted into weapons, how energies not meant for us were forced into experiments. And he utters a claim that freezes the narrator's blood. Some disaster earthquakes, tsunamis, even nuclear meltdowns were not entirely natural. They were consequences. In 1986, the Chernobyl disaster shocked the world. Officially, it was poor reactor design and operator error. Yet conspiracy theories have always swirled about sabotage. secrecy, hidden truths. Dr. Avery's confession taps into that same unease. When catastrophe feels too large, too sudden, we wonder if there's more to the story. The Queen's resolve. The narrator asks about Earth woman whose presence shaped his life. Avery's expression softens. She wanted to reveal everything. In her later years, she was ready. She believed the people deserved the truth. But they silenced her, not with threats those she could withstand, but with isolation, surveillance. And when she pressed too hard, her death buried more than a reign. It buried a warning. The warning, repeated in her notes, haunts both men. Prepare for their return. Warnings from leaders often go unheeded until too late. Churchill warned of Hitler long before war erupted. Cassandra in Greek mythology foresaw Troy's fall, but no one believed her. Elizabeth's whispered phrase echoes those tragic patterns warnings ignored until catastrophe arrives. The raid. As Avery and the narrator speak, the sound of boots draws closer. Heavy, deliberate, echoing in rhythm. The door shudders with the force of fists pounding against steel. Avery whispers only one word, run. But the narrator knows there is nowhere left to run. Rifles click outside. Shadows stretch across the floor. And in his hand, trembling, he clutches the only weapon he has, a recorder filled with testimony. The escape. Somehow, through chaos or hesitation, he escapes. Stumbling into the marsh, dawn breaking, lungs burning with each breath. The recorder pressed to his chest is no longer just an object, it is his lifeline. But even in escape, threats persist. Emails appear blank but menacing. Strangers murmur warnings as they brush past. Notes slide under doors. He's not being hunted blindly. He's being cornered methodically. This mirrors countless stories of defectors and whistleblowers. Consider Alexander Litvinenko, poisoned in exile, or journalists silenced after leaking truths. These are not just fictional shadows. The world has its own silencing mechanisms. The burden of exposure. The narrator begins copying his recordings, scattering fragments to journalists, academics, even clergy. Not full truths, but seeds are now to outpace silence. If they erase me, let my words scatter like embers. Perhaps one spark will survive. Here, the myth intersects with our digital age. Information, once fragmented, can survive destruction. WikiLeaks, Panama Papers, Snowden files all showed how truth, once dispersed, resists erasure. This parallel makes the Queen's buried secrets resonate with modern audiences. The lonely exile. The narrator moves between safe houses, abandoning ties, cutting contact with friends. The silence around him deepens not just from those who fear speaking, but from the weight of what he carries. Even in solitude, threats seep in, blank emails, notes that say stop, a car idling too long outside. Every creak in the night becomes the sound of boots approaching. History repeats in these shadows. From the dissidents of the Soviet Union to modern investigative journalists, isolation is one of the most effective tools of suppression. When people feel alone, truth itself feels fragile. Seeds of defiance. But fear does not break him, it sharpens him. He begins scattering fragments of truth, recordings copied, notes mailed anonymously, slips of testimony hidden in libraries, sent to professors, tucked into the folds of books. If I vanish, let the world find me in fragments. Let them know I tried. In 1942, members of the Polish resistance smuggled microfilm evidence of Nazi atrocities to the West. Few believed them at the time, but the fragments later formed part of history's proof. Seeds of truth, even scattered, endure. Scene 19. The Queen's handwriting. Among the notes he carries, one haunts him above all, her handwriting. Clear, deliberate, not rambling or frantic. Each page a Queen's conviction. The phrase repeated, their return must not find us unprepared. It is not fear, but duty. She foresaw not conquest, but a reckoning, a demand for answers humanity may not be ready to give. This transforms the myth into a metaphor. Prepare for their return can be read not just as aliens, but as a call for accountability. Either it be climate change, technological power, or social upheaval. The idea resonates because we all fear being unprepared for forces larger than ourselves. The decision. One evening, cloaked in the hush of a quiet library, he makes his choice. He will not die silent. He speaks into the recorder, not for himself, but for whoever might one day listen. They bargained with shadows. They traded gifts for promises they could never keep. And she, a queen, carried that burden with grace until her final breath. She tried to warn us, and so do I. Their return must not find us unprepared. The act of speaking truth, even when silenced, is timeless. From Galileo whispering, and yet it moves, to whistleblowers today who risk exile, the pattern endures, truth eventually slips free. The lesson in the silence. The story closes not with certainty, but with reflection. Did the Queen truly carry alien secrets? Was Project Albian real, or is it a myth woven from shadows? Perhaps the details blur, but the lesson remains. Power always hoards knowledge. Silence is the easiest prison, and truth, no matter how fragile, outlasts oppression. History is not only wars and crowns, it is the ledger of truths hidden. Bargain struck, silence is imposed, and when silence cracks, the world trembles. Final moral takeaway. This story, whether myth or hidden history, asks us to reflect on our own world. What truths are being buried today? What warnings are ignored because they are inconvenient? Whether or not the Queen knew of visitors from the stars, her supposed warning, prepare for their return, is a call for us to prepare for any challenge we face, ecological, technological, even moral. Because one day, silence will break, and when it does, the question will not be whether we believed it, will be whether we were ready.